Hey guys, it's Riley and this is Need to Know Horses. So today we're talking about show bills. I just kind of wanted to go through and explain kind of what some of the classes are so that if you're interested in showing and you've never shown before, you know what we're talking about. So classes aren't really what a normal class would be where you would like go and sit down and learn something. A class is just like the thing where you enter and you're competing against everybody else. I know that may sound a little confusing, so if you need a better explanation, just comment down below and I will make sure to try and explain that a little better. So you can see there are lots of classes, and this show bill actually goes to class 53, which is not uncommon for shows. This is a youth show organization, so it's based on grade instead of by age. Most groups will do junior is about 17 and under, and then they have like senior. I know the one organization that I show with other than this that I've now aged out of, where we have junior, which I believe is 13 and under, and then 14 to 17 is junior, and then senior I think is like I don't even know the ages anymore, and then it's like 18 to some other age, and then there's also a senior division for older individuals. So I'm going to go through and just kind of explain a little bit what everything on this form means. I've crossed out everything that has to do with where it's located or what organization it's with. So let's get started. So every show bill will have the date, judge, and time it starts, as well as its location. Like I said, this one's crossed out just so that we don't, I'm not spreading for where this is. So this is for the organization's members, parents, projects, leaders, and alumni. This was our alumni show last year, and so this is just open to anyone who was in this organization or is a member or a parent, or even the leaders. Because it's a youth organization, there are adult leaders that go and help the members to learn and help them out with questions that they have. Then what you need in order to enter, which is just a Coggins for this show. If you're traveling out of state, you do also need health certificates, which you can get from your vet. Next, here we have the office fee and class fees, as well as stall/trailer jump out. So for this show, office fee is $5, the class fee is $5, and that's per class. And then a stall is $15, and you get $5 back if you clean your stall out, because if you don't clean your stall out, then for this group they have to go through and like the barn manager has to clean it out at the end of the show. And then you have to have shavings for your stall for our shows, and then there's also a trailer in/jump out fee, where if you don't use a stall, it's just $10 per horse, which is the same as the stall, since you get $5 back as long as you clean it out. So it's a matter of, do you want to buy shavings and bring them and clean them out or not. And then this is just some other information that doesn't apply to every show. It's just kind of wanting to share with our members what it was. And then all members must ride with a helmet on. For showmanship and halter that's in this show, they could use a hat, which I'll explain a little bit more in a little bit. All of our riders have to be at least 3rd grade, and it goes until they graduate high school, and it's through their first year in college. Then you have a kind of bit of a little key. So horse, pony, Western, and English, which I'll show over here a little bit more when we're going through some of the classes. Walk trot classes is that they can only go in the walk trot classes. They can't cross over to canter classes. Some shows do allow for you to be in both walk trot and walk trot canter, depending on the show and the organization it's through. This one is just, if you do walk trot, you stay in the walk trot classes, and if you do canter, you can't go down to walk trot classes. And with this one is, if you go up to a canter class, you cannot go back to a walk trot class. This is talking about High Point, which members can get year-end awards for. And then just that dogs aren't allowed on the showgrounds, and then on the back are just a ton of other rules. And most show bills will do that, where they put the rules on the back just that you always have them with you, and you can look back at them and look through their rules. And they'll often say also see X show rule book. So like ours goes off of Wisconsin Horse Council and AQHA rules, so you can look back in those books as well to see for other rules. So back at the top, I'm just going to start going through some of what the classes are. So halter is based solely on the horse's conformation, so how they're built, how their muscling is, what they look like, and it's solely on that. It has nothing to do with the individual. Oftentimes, especially in a show like this where it's based off of more so the high point for the individual, they won't count towards high point. But a lot of places that do have a lot more halter classes, ours was just for the alumni show, whereas our usual shows don't usually have halter classes. But so for shows that actually have halter, they do count for year-end awards or high point or whatever they are going for. So here we just have English, so any horse that is English type, and that's usually in English bridle. And some shows will have where you don't have to wear the proper attire for halter classes, especially if they have both Western and English type at halter, and they're close together like these would be. I don't remember if this show had proper show attire for halter. I know some will do just local shows where if they have them both, is they'll just do that the proper headgear for the horse, so either a show halter or an English bridle are required. So I'm not sure what this one was, but it was just English type at halter and then Western type at halter, so any Western horses, and then pony at halter. So any ponies that are there that would like to do halter. A couple years prior to this show, I had taken a pony that I took into halter. And then there's also novice halter, which is a horse that has not won three blues in a halter class recently, I think. And then HP is horse or pony, and then EW is English or Western, and the pony here is also English Western. Next we have our showmanship classes, and there are 5 or 6 here. Let's see. There are 5 classes here. So this is the age group here, 9th grade and above, horse or pony, and English or Western. Doesn't matter as long as the exhibitor is 9th grade and over. The next age division is 8th grade and under, also horse or pony, English or Western. Showmanship for parents, leader, and alumni, horse, pony, English, Western, which is quite fun because oftentimes you get a lot of the parents or leaders who aren't showing a ton or haven't worked with the horse a ton to do just some really silly patterns, and it could be quite entertaining seeing the difference between how the horse does with the member that they always show with versus with the parent that's not always necessarily working with them a ton. And then novice, so not have won 3 blues. And then horseless horse, which was just for members who were using somebody else's horse that don't own their own horse and that aren't taking care of the horse or training the horse most of the time. Then we have a 10-minute warm-up to begin all of our English classes. And this is where people oftentimes for our show bills get confused because they look for the grade. So if you're doing walk trot and you go into a grade class, you're going into the wrong classes, which is usually always a big misunderstanding, especially in the beginning of the year. So you have the beginner walk trot and intermediate walk trot, which are just the difference between how long you've been working with the horse and where you feel you're at with the horse. So the beginner walk trot is just, for our group, is the first 2 years that you're showing with the horse generally, and then you'd move to intermediate, and then intermediate is the 3rd or more years that you've been showing the horse in walk trot. And I have shown in the intermediate classes for years, until just the last 4 or 5 years when I started taking Flash into the canter classes. So this is English, so it can be any type of English. Generally for our shows we only have hunt seat riders, but certainly saddle seat is also allowed. Those are generally the common two that we would ever see at our shows, but both are allowed. Just most of our individuals only ride hunt seat. And then any grade, like I said, is just based off of experience and horse or pony. Then there's the parents, leader, and alumni, which is also walk trot. And then again, age divisions split between 9th grade and over, 8th grade and below. English pleasure for parents, leaders, and alumni. Novice pleasure not have won 3 blues. So you can see here that these are pleasure, and then down here these are equitation. The difference between pleasure and equitation is pleasure is based off of how the horse is looking while being ridden, and you want the horse to be nice and calm, and generally the judge will pick the top horses that they would like to get on and, you know, ride all day or for any amount of time that just looks like it's easy to ride and a pleasurable ride to enjoy. And then equitation is based off of the rider. So how the rider is handling the horse and communicating with the horse, and their seat and posture while riding. So the equitations are all just the same as the pleasure classes, just based on the rider instead of the horse. And then we have another break, which is generally the lunch break, which typically is about 30 minutes for shows, and maybe longer or shorter depending on the show that you're showing at. Lead line, which is the only class they can ride. And then we have 2 driving classes, pleasure and reinsmanship. Just like pleasure and equitation, pleasure is based on how the horse goes, and reinsmanship is based on the driver for how they are controlling their horse or pony that they're driving. Then we move into the Western classes, which are the same as the English classes, just in the Western discipline. And it's all the same, based on the horse for pleasure and based on the rider for equitation, which is also called horsemanship. If you see a show bill that says Western horsemanship instead of stock seat equitation, it's the same thing. Stock seat just is, stock breed, or stock horses, which is generally Western, and then horsemanship is just the way the rider is riding. And then there's the horseless horse, which they have really low here. Generally for our shows we usually have them where there's English and Western split, like every other age division and group. Just here they put them kind of towards the end. Disciplined rail is a fun class. It's a lot of how well is your horse trained and what can you do with your horse. So oftentimes on a disciplined rail they'll ask you to side pass off the rail a couple of steps, or counter canter, which you never want to do in a regular class. They might even ask you to drop your stirrups or irons, just kind of all fun things like that, and how well you're communicating with your horse, and it's a lot of fun. I've done it a couple of times. Egg and spoon is another fun class, which is just you get an egg and you have a spoon that you have to keep the egg on the spoon, and generally it's the last person with their egg wins. It's a lot harder than it sounds, but it's always a lot of fun to see how far it can go, where we've had a time or two where they've asked for an extended canter, or posting without irons or stirrups, even in your Western saddle, just to try to get people to drop their eggs. Paired pleasure is where you have a partner, and it's just like a pleasure class where they'll ask you to walk, trot, canter, both directions, possibly even backing. And you want the horses as lined up as possible and to be as evenly matched as possible and keep their position on the rail next to each other, where one's on the rail and then one's on the inside of the rail so that they're riding next to each other. Bareback is just what it sounds, a bareback class where you don't have a saddle, you only have the bridle, and this has actually been removed from our shows. It is no longer allowed in that organization. So this show bill is out of date for their current rules. And then trail. Exhibitors may ride in only one trail class, and this generally goes for the horse as well, where the horse cannot be used in both trail or in two trail classes like English and Western. And I know a lot larger shows might have that differently, where if they have two different trail patterns for each English and Western, they might have where you can. I'm not sure. I haven't showed at any big shows like that. But they have any grade English, any grade Western, walk trot, which is any grade, and then parents, leaders, and alumni, which is kind of where these rules get bent a little bit, where if you have a member that's showing in, say, English, a parent, leader, or alumni may also show that horse in trail, which is the only exception any time that I've heard of this, where the horse can be used twice in a trail class. And then hippology is not usually common at other shows. This is just a youth learning organization, therefore they have it. And hippology is just laminated boards usually that have pictures, and then a card that has letters with words on them, and you have to match the letter to the picture. So that's what this show belt is, and that's how to determine what classes you want to be in. And like I said, make sure you're reading through your rules and your age divisions and know what kind of fees you're expecting for office fees and class fees for stall, for trailering out. Not all shows will have a fee for trailering out. It'll sometimes be free. You just kind of have to look and see what the expectation is, and definitely plan for that ahead of time before going to a show. So if you have any other questions, make sure you comment down below, and I'll make sure to get back to you guys as soon as I can. And I hope that's helpful in helping you guys know what classes you should be expecting. And if you have questions about other classes that aren't listed here that you would like help deciphering what your show bill means, just comment down below and I'll see what I can tell you about it. And if you need it, I will certainly make a second video about shows and show bills. And I can show other forms once I find them. I know we have them around somewhere, so once I find other like the forms that you'd fill out when you get there, I can certainly show how to fill those out and what to expect when you get to a show. I hope that's helpful, and make sure you guys subscribe to see other how-to videos, and I will see you guys all next time. Thanks! Bye!